I would say we just slowly start. And then a few people join. We're just gonna miss the beginning. So yeah. Welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining our exclusive How to Find TripMates Quickly and Easily webinar tonight. My name is Anna, and I'm going to host this webinar tonight. And yeah, I'm really excited that so many of you showed up, and looking forward to some a really cool webinar night. And I hope that I can give you a lot of tips and tricks for your next trips, because I'm pretty sure, although at the moment it might not like be the best situation, that sooner or later we will be able to travel again, and then we need cool travel buddies to discover the world. This is why I decided to do this webinar, so you're all ready, set, go whenever we can basically travel again without so many restrictions. So I do have some, let's say, not rules, because that sounds like really German, but just some things that I would love to you guys to just take care of during the webinar, because we're quite so many people. So it would be great if you could just stay muted, unless if I ask you something or something, you can just unmute, and then you can use the chat, respectfully. So whenever you want to do something there, but please don't ask questions, because I can't answer them during the webinar. I will answer questions in the end. So you can just keep them in mind, and then I can answer them later. And then, of course, if you like something, there's like, I think on the bottom or on the top of your little Zoom bar, there are some reactions that you can use, like a smiley or something. So whenever you like something, whatever, feel free to react in some kind, some way. And I think we can get started. So I thought, okay, before maybe jumping right into the topic of TripMates, I would like to explain what JoinMyTrip is. So basically, I don't know if they said my name. My name is Anna. I am from JoinMyTrip, so I work for JoinMyTrip for 2.5 years already. So it's been quite a journey, and quite interesting, because especially this year, working in a travel startup in a global pandemic, was definitely a roller coaster ride, but we're still there, and we can't wait to travel again. So basically, what is JoinMyTrip? JoinMyTrip is basically a platform where you can find travel buddies. So I'm sure that you guys had the issue that you wanted to go to that specific destination. You had that amazing trip in mind. Maybe you wanted to do that hike in Nepal. And then you would ask your friends and family, like, hey, you want to join? I want to do that trip to Nepal, like do that hike and stuff. And then it'd be like, no, I don't have time, or I don't have money, or I don't like the destination, or I don't like the backpacking trip style. And in the end, you probably ended up not going. And this is what we saw happens a lot. And this is why we said we want to create a platform where those people can find like-minded people to do that Nepal trip, to do that beach vacation in Tulum at the beach, to do that safari in South Africa, to do that road trip in the US. This is why we founded JoinMyTrip. By now, we have 140,000 plus members in our community from all over the world. And what can I say? It's been a not long, but like quite intense journey. So we have had so many happy people traveling together, and so many friendships that already were created. A few love stories as well. It's just always nice to see people traveling around with their travel buddies from JoinMyTrip. So basically, maybe for you to just understand a bit more how the concept works, for the ones that don't know, on JoinMyTrip, we have trip leaders and TripMates. Trip leaders are the ones that are the planners, that are the ones that love to, take over the flight research, the planning of the stops of the road trip, the Airbnb research, and they're just the ones that love to be the ones sitting in the driver's seat and like being the coordinator of the trip. And then you have the ones, the TripMates, that love to travel as well, but they might not be so much into that whole trip planning thing, and they're like just want to like join the trip but like sit back and relax. So what do we do with JoinMyTrip is basically we connect those two types of travelers. The trip leader posts his trip or her trip on the platform, and then interested TripMates can request to join. And this is basically how it works. So it's super, super easy. So today, what I want to do is talk about how to find travel mates quickly and easily. So TripMates quickly and easily. So I'm going to basically explain you how to create your perfect trip on our website. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. I have been on many trips with JoinMyTrip because I used to be a tour guide before. So I was always the one planning the trips and like executing them, taking care of everybody. And it's just in my blood that I just love trip planning. So after 2.5 years, I kind of like know how do you have to design your trip? What do you have to put in your trip description? How does it have to look? How do you have to communicate? What do you have to do to find out that the people that request to join are actually the perfect trip mates for your trip? And I also spoke with many leaders that also gave me their tips. So by now I have quite some kind of like a collection of tips and tricks. So this is why actually I just realized it Friday because I'm going on a trip to Gran Canaria on Saturday, and I decided to go last week Friday. So last week Friday I posted a trip. I think it was 7 p.m. at night. I did my magic, and I ended up yesterday. I had in total 15 people that wanted to join my trip. That was because I know how to promote the trip and I know what works. And this is why I'm going to show you today how you can actually reach the same. If you want to go to Gran Canaria, let me know. I might have a spot left. You can just send me a request or JoinMyTrip. But anyways, so basically, the most important is that when you are in JoinMyTrip on the platform and you registered and you create your profile, make sure to fill out your profile. There are some tiny questions about some things regarding traveling. You can fill out which countries you have visited. You can collect your Facebook account, and you can basically just give them all overview of who you are and why you travel and why you are enjoying my trip. Because if you have a profile that is filled out, it's more likely that people will join you. Because imagine there's a really nice trip, but then if you click on the profile, the picture is like a palm tree and the profile is not filled out, then the TripMate doesn't have any clue who he or she is traveling with. And this is why I recommend you guys to try to make your profile and JoinMyTrip as real as possible and just fill it up with any information. And then the next step is, okay, you want to create your trip. That you have that idea in mind. Maybe Sami, you want to go on a road trip to the US and you say, okay, I'm going to just put on this trip and let's see who's going to join. So you just click on lead a trip and you click on build your next trip, and then you can start planning. So now what I'm going to do is there are different chunks of what makes the perfect trip, and I'm just going to explain you a few tips for every single piece. So the first thing is definitely the description and also the trip name. So when you pick a trip name, try to be creative and a bit inspiring. So like if Sami would say like, Trip USA might not seem as inspiring as incredible road trip, West Coast USA, join my unique adventure or something similar. So there are always like a few words that you can play with that make your trip a bit more exciting. This is the first thing. And then, of course, when you write the description, try to make it as informative as possible. So try to include a bit about who you are. Why do you want to do that trip? Maybe if Jan wants to go to Nepal to do that hike, so he can be like, hey, yeah, I'm Jan. I want to go to Nepal and I want to do it because X, Y, Z. Then try to also include what kind of expectations do you have about this trip? What kind of things are you expecting from the trip? Do you want to do like a super chilled, relaxed beach vacation of just having sangria all day at the beach? Might be, and you will find people that will join you. But maybe you're more type of that wants to like do that, rent that car on the island, explore the whole island and the spots and hikes and whatever. It's just about communication. So the more the more details you give about what you expect from your trip, the more likely you will find the perfect TripMates. And then after the description, include some stops. So JoinMyTrip gives you the option to basically add every stop that you want to do on your trip to your trip, and then you can also make it look nice by adding pictures. So basically, you type in the location, it will then take the data from Google, and then you can write a small description of what you want to do in this stop. Let's say Oliver is planning a trip, let's say to Gran Canaria maybe, and he says, okay, first stop is gonna be Las Palmas. We're gonna arrive. We're gonna do a little stroll through the city, and then for most of the stops, there will be a picture automatically added to the stop. For some, there's no picture basically in the back end, so you will need to upload your own picture. I will show you later a few tricks how you can find beautiful pictures that you're actually allowed to use, because that's always the name of finding pictures that are not like having the problem with the using. So, and then what you can also do is add the type of transportation that you are going to use to get from A to B. Of course, in a road trip, it's kind of like simple. You're probably going with a car. But if you're going, let's say, in Asia, you're going from Vietnam, from north to south, you might take a train, you might take a bus, you might walk or take a boat, whatever. Just make it a bit more informative by just adding the type of accommodation. And then for each stop, you can add the number of days that you want to stay at this stop. This is important because when you create your trip, you're just going to be asked for the start date. And the end date is going to be calculated automatically by the amount of days that you will have in total at the end. As you can see here, it's like it says 14. So you can add those days. What you can also do, let's say you will stay for 7 days in one location, but you will do day trips. You just add 7 in the first stop, and then you can also make 0. And then basically you just stick to 0, and you just make the single stops with the as day trip stops. That's what I usually do. And then, as you can see here, the total days will show up in the top. And then, as I said before, pictures. We will talk about pictures a lot today because they are super important. I think I don't have to tell you that pictures say more than 1,000 words, and it's actually true. So the more inspiring pictures you add to the single stops of your trip, the more likely people will actually join. So if you don't have pictures of where you want to go because you maybe haven't been there, which is a problem, there are a few websites. One is unsplash.com and one is pixabay.de or .com. On those platforms, you can type in any keywords that you are searching for example, Gran Canaria or whatever, beach or Mexico, Tulum, whatever, and then you will have pictures that show up. Those pictures are all free, so you can just download them and upload them to the trip. So that's actually, saved my life the last years, definitely. And then next thing is accommodation. The accommodation is something that, of course, the trip leader take care of when they are organizing the trip. And I always recommend to share some details about the accommodation in the trip description. Why? Because imagine you are planning to have a kind of like, not snobby, but you want to rent that amazing villa in Tulum at the beach, and you are able to or ready to, or you want to spend a bit more money because you might not be a student anymore and you just, have saved a lot of money because you haven't traveled the whole year. Say that, because then if there is a student, this person will not send you a message, and you're not going to spend time on talking to that person because you make sure that the budget is the same. So whenever you have in mind what kind of accommodation you want to have, just text that in the description. Hey, I'm going to plan to rent an Airbnb. Hey, I'm planning to stay in hostels. Hey, I'm planning to get a hotel. Whatever, just try to include that information so that they can actually calculate a bit. And then this is something, the trip cost is something that can be kind of like tricky because, money is always something that people don't really like to talk about, but it's something that you obviously have to talk about because you're traveling together, so you're going to spend money. This way, we have on JoinMyTrip the opportunity, to calculate your travel costs. And we also have the opportunity for you guys to save some money because we partnered up with quite some companies, Reps, accommodation, photo books, my fly ride when your flight got cancelled. And with all these partners, you get discounts. So when you're planning your trip costs, what you can do is check out the offers that we have, and they might help you to save some money. And we are always adding new partners. So you can check that out when you go on your profile and you click on my own partners, you will have access to all the discounts. And then what you can do is after you created the stops on your trip, you can create your own budget, like an overview of the costs that you will have on the trip by just opening that cost calculator. It's not opened when you just enter the page. And that's where you can add all the different costs of your trip. This is recommended because that way you can calculate. So basically, what you do is you calculate the costs per one person. So if you say you're going to rent an apartment that is 500 euros a week, and you're going to be with 5 people, obviously, or you're planning to be 5 people, you're going to put as an accommodation 100 euros. And then if you already know the cost of the car, you divide by the amount of people that you want to travel with. What I always recommend is, doesn't matter how good you are with calculation. Yeah, you guys have traveled a lot, I imagine. There are always going to be costs that you can't calculate. So just add a buffer in the end. So you're going to be on the safe side if there are any costs that you're planning with. And then what you can also do, and this is something that I actually love, and I wish I would have known that when I was still studying, because that's when I needed money. You can actually earn money with organizing this trip. So by you taking care of accommodation, transportation, checking out the route, the stops, taking care of managing the TripMates. This is hard work. Like, I mean, I have planned several trips myself, and every time I'm just surprised how much time goes into taking the perfect Airbnb, getting the host, getting on a call with the host, calling all the TripMates. Let them pay for that, really. Like for me, I usually what I do is I take for each trip per person between 30 and 50 euros, depending how much I plan. And I always communicate that in front. I always say like, hey guys, I take 50 euros or I take 40 euros. And I never had a single person that said like, oh, this is a lot, because they all know how much work it is to plan. So this way I can usually either pay my flights or pay a few days of accommodation and kind of like finance my trip a bit. I also have friends that actually are able to finance their whole trip just by taking TripMates on the trip. Of course, it will depend on the destination you go to. It's easier if you do a trip to Morocco than if you plan a trip to Australia, maybe, because Australia is a bit more expensive. But still, it is possible if you do it right. And then this is something you can decide. The thing is, if a TripMate enters your trip, they don't see how you separate the costs. They don't see how you split the costs. So because we give it's up to the trip leader if you want to be transparent or not. I like transparent just because I like to be like transparent, but some trip leaders are like they give a whole price, they say what it's included, and they didn't want to split it because maybe they can't. I have a friend that is living on a sailing boat and he's renting out that sailing boat for sailing trips. And obviously, because it's his sailing boat, he can say how much he rents it for because it's his boat. So that's kind of like making it a bit tricky. But what I usually do is I write in the trip description how my costs split up. So I would say like, hey, the accommodation is going to be 200 euros. The car is a fee per person. I take 50 euros in trip leader fee. And if there's some money left over in the end, I will pay you back on the trip. This worked always perfectly fine for me. On the trip, I created a splitwise group where we then always added costs that came up during the like groceries or restaurants or whatever. And then in the end, we just press the button and then we just divide the bill in between everybody. But it's up to you how you do it. Then the last part is also the activities. If you want, you can add them, but really it depends if you want to plan them or not. Of course, if you're planning a surfing trip, you might want to add the cost of the surfboard. But if you're just doing like a road trip, you don't have to add entrance fees for a certain building because that's what some, what can just like, basically pay in the destination. And last but not least, be quick. So whenever somebody will request to join your trip, you will receive an email. And if you have turned on SMS notification, you will also receive an SMS. Then you can click on the link. You will be directed to the chat, and then you can reply that person. What I usually do is I text with them a bit on what JoinMyTrip, and then I have a call with them on WhatsApp to see if the vibes are the same, like we're on the same wave, kind of. And then I confirm them via JoinMyTrip in the end. This is something that is kind of like super important, that you stick in the end to the platform and that you confirm your trip mates through the platform. Because if you don't do that, then we don't know that you are traveling with this person. and we then cannot support you. So if something happens on the trip, before the trip, somebody gets sick, whatever, if you are not officially traveling with that person through our platform, we won't be able to support you, like JoinMyTrip customer support team. This is why if you confirm that person through the platform, you will receive the money automatically, and you have the secure payment and all that kind of stuff, and you have the committed TripMate on your trip. This is something that is kind of important. And no worries about the notification. There is an app coming actually sooner than we thought. So for all the Android users, you might be the lucky ones being able to use it a bit faster than the Apple ones. It's actually already in testing. So depending on how many bugs we find, it will be there sooner or later. But we hope to be able to launch in the next weeks. So if you follow us on social media or subscribe to the newsletter, you will be informed as soon as the app is ready to be downloaded. And then, of course, it will make life easier to check the TripMates on an app, because at the moment, yes, it's still a website, so it's not as convenient as it would be with an app. This is why we're working on one. And now it's basically all about how to find the perfect TripMate. Believe me, I have had many TripMates, and I have learned a lot by traveling with this, not strangest people, but the most different and diverse people ever, on how to select the perfect ones. Because I think personally, you can be in the most ugly place in the world if you are with cool people that are on the same wave and you're just getting along really, really, really good. Then it doesn't matter where you are; it just matters who you are with. And in the end, you're spending your vacation with those people. So really make sure that you guys get along really good, and then you will have an amazing time. The most important, I think, is definitely set expectations. I already said in the beginning, trip, and how do you want your trip mates to be, or like to, basically to be. What do you need from your trip mates? And just say this in your trip description or ask your questions in the chat before, and then you're going to be on the safe side. Of course, if you do like a special trip, like for example, a special hiking trip or whatever, make sure that your trip mates actually have hiked before. I know that story from a friend of mine. He does hiking trips on Madeira, and he really hikes. Like, it's not like you go for a walk, it's like you go hiking. So then he asked like his trip mates, like, hey, have you been hiking before? And then this girl was like, yeah, I've hiked like half an hour through the forest once with my family. And then you're like, okay. So maybe, this is like when you do a trip where you need a special requirement, just make sure that that your trip mates have this requirement. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. Regarding the language, something that I realized, I was on a trip once with Germans, with 5 Germans and one guy from the Netherlands. Although we all speak English, you would know that if you are 5 people from Germany, in the end you end up speaking German. There are moments when you just forget to talk English. And this is so, so bad for the person that is not speaking the language. So whenever you take somebody that is not the same language as the other ones, make sure that you have at least one other person as well, because otherwise it's just like a really bad feeling for that person. And just keep that in mind when planning. Then, of course, get to know your trip mates. Have a call with them, have a video call with them. I think video calls are always the best, because this way you can actually face the people, and it's easier to just communicate a bit. And by now, after 1 year of pandemic, I think we're all really good in having Zoom meetings and Google Meets and WhatsApp video calls and whatsoever. So you can just get to know them. And then, as I said before, let's say David said, okay, Anna, I'm going to join that amazing trip to, let's say, South Africa. I want to go on that safari tour with you. And I say, hey, David is so cool. I'm definitely going to take him on my trip. And then what I do is I confirm him through the platform, which is just by accepting that person. Then David pays 20% of the whole trip price upfront. And 30 days before the trip starts, I get the remaining 80%. This way, you have the commitment. David knows that he's going to go on my trip. So when I get sick on my trip, takes care that somebody else is replacing me. And David doesn't end up going alone, although he has no clue of South Africa. And I maybe have been there for a few times. And this way I know, okay, David is going to actually travel with me, and I can count on him, and he's not going to back off. And he's not like just a weird contact I have found on Facebook. Yeah, and then also, of course, once people book with our platform, the cancellation policy applies, so you can make sure that you don't end up sitting on that money, that Airbnb that you booked and then everybody backed off. This is why I always recommend to book through the platform, because this way you are basically protected. And I have had so many stories of people finding travel buddies on Facebook and then suddenly they didn't respond anymore, and all that kind of horror stories. It's just something that I would always try to prevent. And yeah, also everybody that travels with JoinMyTrip is booking as a book through JoinMyTrip. That is at the moment living in Germany or Austria is automatically insured through JoinMyTrip. So with the Allianz Travel, it's worldwide. So whenever you travel with JoinMyTrip, it doesn't matter if it's Mexico or US or whatever, you are covered. We are working on a solution for international users as well. So it's going to be there in the next month. But at the moment, it's just valid for Germans and Austrian people. And then this is what is actually the absolute biggest secret of finding enough TripMates is Facebook groups. Everybody is always laughing on me. And if I tell them I use Facebook groups, they're like, why do you use Facebook? But guys, Facebook groups are the best, because whatever type of thing you need, there is going to be a Facebook group where you find a bunch of people that are just in this group for that one topic. And this is amazing for traveling. So whenever you want to do that safari in South Africa, there is a group on Facebook for all the travelers that want to go to South Africa or have been there. But there are also bigger travel groups within just travelers in general. We have a German one, the Reisepartner gesucht Facebook group. It's actually the biggest one. And then we also have some other ones like the international one, a one for women, and then also one from our trip leaders, where you can post your trip and then find TripMates. I will show you in 1 second how. Besides those general groups, you also have specific groups. So you have groups for that camping trip to Norway. You have groups for backpacking on Bali. You have groups for road tripping in the US. For every single type of travel that you're going to do, you will find a Facebook groups where you have all the people that are interested in that kind of like travel type or country basically condensed together. So it's perfect to find your travel buddies for your next trip. So all you need to do is create that perfect Facebook post. And this is how I got my 15 people within 4 days, by just posting in the right Facebook groups with the right text and the right pictures. What I what you have here now is like just 2 example trips, example posts. Write something like, "Hey, I'm Ludmilla. What are you planning to do? I want to go, or I want to do a road trip to Iceland. When? In March. With how many people? And why do you want to do it?" Really short. Like the shorter, the better. But of course, you need all that information inside. And this is really the absolute most important thing: add pictures to your post. Why? The Facebook algorithm in groups works like this. The more reactions your post gets, which means likes and comments, the more it's going to be pushed. To the top. There's a group with 34,000 people. Whenever you post something, there will be 50 people that will post something at the same time. So your post will get lost in the whole group. So what you need to do is, what happens if you see a picture of a beautiful beach? You like it. And this is automatically. And this is why people do that intuitive. And this is why your post, if it has nice pictures attached to it, I always recommend 3 or 5, it will automatically be pushed to the top, and then more people will see it. This is what I said. You can see it. 15 people within 4 days, just because I did Facebook posts with nice pictures of a nice villa, of a nice beach. And I put a picture of myself working with my laptop and a help, and people liked it, and my post went up. And this is how people then started commenting, and then it always got pushed to the top. Pictures, as I said, Pixabay or Unsplash, you can find amazing pictures for whatever you need, and then just attach them to your Facebook post. And then what I do is, when people request, when I have information, I send them the JoinMyTrip link in the message, and then they can see more information and basically all the details that you have created on JoinMyTrip. This way you explain for every single person wants, like, what are your travel plans, you can just tell them, hey, this is the link. You can find all the information about the cost, about the stops, about the accommodation in this link. And then I usually tell them to send me a request via JoinMyTrip, and then I chat with them on JoinMyTrip. This is how I usually do it. And yeah, as I said, there are different types of things that you can do. One thing that is something that people like to do at the moment is co-working. Co-working basically means that you share living space and working space with other remote professionals while exploring the beautiful surrounding in your free time. We do have a lot of co-working trips on at the moment because, at least in Germany, I think it's actually not only Germany, there's so many people in home office. And after 1 year, you just get crazy. Like, you can't see the walls around anymore. And it's just like super, super, yeah, it's just super annoying. And this is why people start moving their home office to the beach and live in a beautiful villa and then work from there remotely. Of course, this only works when you have a job where you just need your laptop. It doesn't work when you have another job, but for the other jobs, it actually works. And of course, you need to check with your boss if you're actually allowed to do that, because some bosses are okay with it and some are not. But from the law side, it is allowed, at least for Germans, you can work until 3 months abroad without having to pay taxes in that country. So from the law side, there is no problem, and you're still insured. For co-working, of course, there are a few more things that you need to take care of when you pick your TripMates, because you might want to make sure that you have the same working hours, because otherwise, I had once a teacher from Peru, and she was working from like 4 p.m. until late in the night, but I worked from 8, 7 in the morning until like 5 or 6. So we would basically like have completely different schedules. This wouldn't work for me, so I didn't take her on my trip. Things that you just have to account when you plan a co-working trip. Then, of course, you can use the time to share your skills. I usually do a session on how to pimp your Instagram, because I'm a little like in my free time I have a travel blog, and I always share that kind of like knowledge with my trip mates usually. Some people like to share the knowledge about HTML. I once had a little session about how to invest your money. So use that knowledge on a co-working trip to just, basically your skills. And then, of course, when you want to pick and create your co-working trip, you might want to, make sure that the accommodation that you're actually booking has enough tables, has good Wi-Fi, and you can make sure that people can actually work in a good environment. It's a difference if I book a villa for 10 of my friends of having a wild weekend on Mallorca than if I want to have a proper like vacation with some other coworkers. So then I choose my villa maybe a bit different from what I would choose with my friends. And then, you don't have to plan a lot of activities on a co-working trip because you're working from Monday to Friday usually. And then on the weekends, you can, of course, plan something. But of course, you don't have to. Like, I usually have some ideas, but then usually you just end up sharing your ideas and then you do something together. And of course, you also want to make sure that you take your remote working skills. Like, I would never travel without my noise canceling headphones, chargers, extendable cables for the outlets, whatever. There's a lot of things that I would never travel without if I go on a co-working trip. And this is just a few more details. If you want to know a bit more about co-working, there's a YouTube show that I do with a lot of co-working trips. And you can also just always send me an email. I've been to 5 co-working trips, I think, and I know some stuff about it. So you can always ask me. Then doesn't matter if you are on a trip to South Africa, on that hike in Nepal, or on that road trip on the US West Coast, send us pictures, because you know why I love my job so much? It's because when I get pictures from people traveling through JoinMyTrip, having the best time, co-working on Madeira, hiking in the mountains of Nepal, whatever, this is why we all do this. This is why we work a lot of hours. This is why we basically, do everything to make you guys a great experience. And if we see happy faces traveling, and we know that you guys met through JoinMyTrip, this is the best gift that you can give me. So, or not only to myself, to everybody from the team. So feel free to share your pictures with our customer support team. Check us on Instagram. Share it on Facebook. We're always happy about seeing happy people traveling and experiencing the world with their travel buddies from JoinMyTrip. And And of course, after the trip, you get reviews and you can leaders, the profiles, and the reviews. This helps you if you are a trip mate to make sure that the trip leader is actually a good trip leader. And you can read a bit in the comments about what other trip mates liked about him or her. And then, of course, it helps you as a trip leader to make your profile a bit more authentic. Because, of course, I mean, it's the same on Amazon. Like, if I would rather buy a product that has more reviews and more stars than a product that has no reviews at all, obviously. So, this is something that we implemented last year just to make sure that, yeah, we can let the trip mates basically rate the trip and give you guys an opportunity, or like our trip leaders an opportunity to show the world how good of a trip leader they are. And then this is basically already it about my secret tips of how to find your perfect travel buddies. So the big key is really those Facebook groups, finding the condensed people, and then sharing your link in the Facebook chat, or like in the chat of then yeah, basically finding your group together on JoinMyTrip. Of course, you also get a lot of different requests to JoinMyTrip. This is getting more and more. At the moment, we see a big increase on people searching on the platform. But that thing on Facebook is just supporting you and will give you even more. The more people you have that request to join your trip, the more you can choose the perfect ones, because the bigger is the amount of people that you can choose from. So that was actually already it about all the tips and tricks. And we do have also some other webinars that I just want to quickly show you. And then we jump into that into our little question session where you can ask me whatever you need. So next week, Wednesday, same time, same place, just a different link. We have a webinar about Iceland. We have a expert from Iceland. She was there 7 times already. And she's from Finland. So she knows everything you need to know about Iceland. If that country is on your bucket list, I will actually share the link where you can sign up in the chat now. Yeah, so you can sign up with this link. I will already send the other webinars. So you, yeah. And also, we have another webinar in 2 weeks about how to travel safely this summer. I'm sure all of you want to travel this summer, and it's super complicated. Which countries require vaccine? Which countries have low numbers? What kind of countries are planning to open? What are planning to not open? Which countries are already open? There's so many information that it's impossible to kind of like plan. This is why my colleague Juliana is spent already a lot of time on researching for you guys to give you a lot of inspiration on the best countries to travel to in summer and what you need to do to make sure that you can actually travel this summer, because you will be able. You just need to know how. And this is what we will show you on the 24th. I also sent the link in the chat, so you can just click on it and then register via Calendly. And then on the 31st, we are traveling to Cuba, and we will give you everything that you need to know about Cuba, also with another Cuba expert that has been there 2 times, I think. So if this country is on your travel bucket list for 2021 or 2022, then yeah, if you want, feel free to join. You can sign up on the same page as for the Iceland one. Just scroll down. Feel free to contact me through my email, anna@joinmytrip.com. And of course, if you are yeah, want to stay in touch with us, follow us on Facebook or on Instagram, or send us a message on Twitter or on LinkedIn. We are on every single social media network that you can imagine on this planet, except for Twitch, that we will probably do soon as well. Yeah, just check out. And whenever you want to set up a trip or you have questions, I'm just one email away. I always love to help and to give you some tips and tricks, because I have seen I know how it works basically, and I'm always happy to help. Of course, I would be happy for you guys start planning tonight, because what we will do is we will start promoting soon. So there will be a lot of traffic on the website. So the sooner you set up your trip and the sooner you plan, the more likely you will find some cool travel buddies. And what you can also do is, if you're not sure about the dates, you can set a flexible date to the trip. So basically, I want to travel to the middle of Africa between July 2021 and October 2021. And then you can set it flexible, but you say, okay, I want to go for 2 weeks. And this way, you can already find some leads. And as soon as you have the date fixed, you just make it fixed. This sometimes helps also to be a bit more flexible, especially in times like these when you can't really plan anything, because tomorrow there's going to be another mutation and then everything is closed again. So this is why I always, think the flexible option is sometimes a good solution. Okay.
And don't forget about the Clubhouse.
Then,
That's the, you have to be on Clubhouse.
We are actually there from this week on. So we are about to create our first club and to create our first, what is it called, session? Or like club talk or whatever. So we will be there soon. No worries. We are on it. We just had to get iPhones because none of us had an iPhone. So we kind of like had to get one to be able to use it. Okay, perfect. So guys, thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure meeting all of you. Can't wait to see your trips online, and have a lovely night. Maybe I'll see you in the Iceland webinar or the Cuba webinar or the How to Travel Safely, the summer webinar, or maybe on a trip. I don't know. And yeah, have a lovely evening, and then hope to see you soon. Bye bye, guys.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.